All right, we've got folks still coming in, but we'll get started. We'll do some introductions and take care of some announcements, and then we can get started with our speaker today. Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Corbett, and this is the 13th annual Design for Drupal and our December webinar. I'm the CEO here at Redfin Solutions, and I'm also a volunteer here at Design for Drupal, along with Leslie Glynn, who will cover some announcements in just a moment. For those of you who are new, I see some new names popping in. Design for Drupal is an event dedicated to Drupal design, UX, and front-end development, but as well as the business and process challenges facing Drupal teams. We're typically an in-person event held every summer in Boston, Massachusetts, and we hope to get back there soon. It doesn't look like this year it's going to happen, or next year is going to happen, but we'll keep you updated. In the meantime, we're holding these monthly webinars that I hope everyone's enjoying so far. I'm going to turn things over to Leslie for some announcements, and then we'll get back to our speaker. Leslie.
Excellent. Thanks, Patrick. As Patrick said, welcome everybody to the webinar series for Design for Drupal Boston. We're still in the 2021 edition of this. Today, we're welcoming Mike Herschel from AVB Digital. Mike's going to talk about all the cool things you can do when you don't support IE11 and how you can use these in Drupal Core. So we're looking forward to Mike's presentation in just a few moments. We want to once again thank Preston So. Preston was our 2021 keynote. Preston spoke about voice content. Does your content speak for itself? Hopefully people got a chance to go see the recording that's linked here from YouTube. You can go to the Design for Drupal YouTube channel and find links to all of our webinar recordings as well as all of our keynote recordings from the various years. So check out Preston's presentation if you haven't seen it already. Part of our 2021 event, which was Preston's keynote plus a contribution day. So Drupal contributions are a great way to give back to the community. You can continue to contribute whenever you have an opportunity. There are several Slack channels that you can contribute on. Some of these are admin-UI for the Claro theme, D9- theme for the Olivero theme, and those are made really good progress over the last year. So thanks to everybody that contributed and continue to contribute to those. Easy Out of the Box is an initiative to help make Drupal easier for folks who are new to Drupal. So when they install it right out of the box, it's a better user experience. So feel free to hop on that one. And Project Browser, which myself and Chris Wells are the initiative leads for. We definitely can need help from site builders, folks new to Drupal, front end folks, designers. So if you want to hop onto that Slack channel and just say hello, and we'll let you know how you can help out. But everybody's welcome, whether you're a designer, you're a front end, you do theming, you do coding, documentation, testing, accessibility, all of those and more. There are many, many ways you can contribute. So don't think just because you're not a coder, you can't, a back-end developer that you can't contribute. You certainly can. And there are mentors available, so just ask in the channels for help and somebody will definitely help you out. Upcoming webinar series, we don't have anything scheduled yet for the first couple months of next year. So if anybody has any ideas, please reach out to us for speakers. If not, we'll reach out to our networks and we'll let you know as soon as we have a slate of speakers to start at the beginning of 2022. Oh, I left 2021 there, look at that. I gotta fix that. We need your help. This is obviously, as all of the Drupal camps are, they're volunteer based nonprofits. So, if you're a developer or a speaker who wants to speak, or event coordinator, or you want to help us with social media marketing, get the word out about these webinars and our events, please reach out and you can help us out. And that's also considered contribution to the community, the Drupal community. Community events, upcoming events. So DrupalCon is happening in person in Portland, Oregon, April 25th to 28th of 2022. I almost said 19, wow. 2022. Sessions, people submitted sessions should know this week if their sessions were accepted. So the slate of sessions should be up and available for everybody to look at within the next month or so. So check that out. Definitely go and register for that, sponsor, however you think you might want to help out with that event. Other I guess I have that in there twice. Other community events. There's local Drupal camps coming up. Florida Drupal camp is in person. That's February 18th to 20th in Florida, and Mike's going to speak a little more about that. Mike has been helping lead that camp for years, so great to have Mike doing that. Then there's in person in Belgium on April 4th to 9th, and in Kiev on June 6th. So there's other ones as well, but go to this events page on Drupal.org. It's Drupal.org. Look for the community tab and then look for events, and you can see all the different events that are happening. You'll see this meetups as well. There's the Alley Talks. I think that's today at the same time as this, but they have online virtual meetups as well as a lot of the meetups around the globe. So check those out as well. Great resources for you. Code of Conduct, this is an online virtual event, but the Drupal Code of Conduct applies here as well. So, we anticipate everybody treating everybody making everybody feel welcome and treat everybody, with dignity and respect. If you have any concerns, please reach out to Patrick or myself. And thank you to our Gold Digital sponsor, which happens to be Redfin Solutions. So thank you, Patrick, Chris, and the team at Redfin. Thank you to all these other digital sponsors as well. Atten, Dev Collaborative, Talking Drupal, Acquia, Esteemed, Kalamuna, Evolving Web, Canopy Studios, Pantheon, 108 Degrees, McPhee Design. So thank you everybody for your sponsorship, and we will be starting sponsorship for 2022 shortly. So please reach out to us if you'd like to continue your sponsorship or you'd like to, become a sponsor of these events. Social media, use the tag d4d Boston to tweet or to interact on social media about this event. Let folks know what a great job Mike is doing in the talk, and share the information with other folks that aren't here today. It will be recorded. I know we always get that question. It will be recorded and it will be put up on our YouTube channel. The Q&A is used to ask questions during the webinar. So Mike will present, and then at the end, Patrick will go through the questions, and Mike will answer whatever questions we have time for. So use the Q&A instead of the chat feature for that. And with no further ado, I'm going to send it back to Patrick to introduce Mike.
All right, thanks, Leslie. And also, just before I forget, the volunteer effort, anybody kind of includes with Design for Drupal, if you want to join and help us out, especially if you work for a company who's willing to let you work a little bit on a volunteer basis. All of that influences, for example, your company's marketplace ranking. So you get issue credits and whatnot for all of your contributions. So keep that in mind. Talk to your supervisors or people who run the company you work for, and talk to them about maybe giving back to Drupal. And this is just one of the many ways you can. Today's speaker is a front-end developer who has been developing with Drupal for over 14 years. He's passionate about web performance, usability, and accessibility, and you can often find him speaking on these subjects at Drupal camps or Drupal cons, as well as various other web development conferences. He is the maintainer and lead developer of the new Olivero theme for Drupal 9, as well as an elected at-large Drupal Association Board of Directors member. In addition, he is a primary organizer of the Florida Drupal camp, and he is the maintainer of the Drupal Quick Link module. Hey, I've used that one. Finally, our speaker is going to help us lay Internet Explorer to rest once and for all. We can all rejoice. As I've been told, he also has a special announcement for us later, so I'm curious to see what that's going to be. Please help me welcome Mike Herschel. Mike, welcome to Design for Drupal.
Hey, thank you. Dexter, come here. I'm going to show you my dog first. Come on, boy. This is Dexter. He's pretty sweet. So I'm going to share my screen, and someone let me if you can't see it. Yeah. So I'm sharing my screen right here. And Patrick, jump in if you don't see it.
You're good.
Cool. So this is all the cool things you can do when you don't support Internet Explorer 11, and how we're going to use these in Drupal Core. And I'm Mike Herschel. I'm the Olivero Drupal Core system, Olivero Drupal Core subsystem maintainer. That's me in the top left. If you can't tell, that's my daughter Million. That's Puppy Dexter before he was like all big old and ugly and stuff. So I'm a senior front-end developer at AVB Digital, which is a kind of federal contractor. We're working on the new small business administration website, which is exciting. In the Drupal world, I work primarily in Olivero, which is the new theme for Drupal Core. It's going to be the new front-end theme. It's also going to be the new default theme for Drupal 10, which I'm super excited about. I'm a community elected at-large board of directors member of Drupal Association, and so I'm trying to make things good at the DA. And you can find me on Twitter at Mike Herschel and on Drupal.org at mherschel. I also want to talk about Florida Drupal Camp, which is the best Drupal camp, maybe like very slightly ahead for design for Drupal. So Florida Drupal Camp is in person in Orlando. It's in February. We do it intentionally in February because I don't know where everyone lives, but I can tell you Orlando in February is pretty nice. So you can bring the whole family, take them to Disney World. Our website is www.fldrupal.camp. And check out the website. It's a brand new website, and I really, really like it. So who here has seen this graph before? I don't even know if I can see the chats or anything. Let me fiddle with my stuff right here. But yeah, I can't. But all right, so this is Internet Explorer usage versus US murder rate. This is a real correlation right here. I like to think that there's a causation in here, but I'm not quite confident on that. This is another more accurate meme that I personally came up with that I'm like super happy about. I came up with this just a few days ago. So the sailboat's representing Drupal's front end, all sitting above the water, looking good, but it doesn't move very fast. And why doesn't it move fast? Because Internet Explorer is dragging it around. But you know, Drupal 10 is the new pressure washer to scrape all that gunk off the bottom, all that seaweed. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So today we're talking about some funny memes. So I got some of those out of the way, but you're going to see some more. We're going to talk about history and backwards compatibility of the Drupal front end, what is currently in core, and some cool new CSS features. And even if you're not like a Drupal geek like me, I'm going to go over some of these cool CSS features. And if you are a CSS geek, hopefully you're going to really enjoy these because there's some like really, really neat stuff in there. And then I'm going to talk about how we might end up using these features in core because there's a lot of cool stuff. So hopefully you're familiar with this. This theme is called Bartik. This is the current theme for Drupal 9. And this is 7. This is the current administration theme for Drupal 9. So this is where we're going. This is Olivero. This is what I've been working on. This is the new theme. It's in Drupal 9, but it's not the default theme, right? Did I say Bartik was the new? I said it is the old theme, right? Anyway, Olivero is the new theme for Drupal 9, and it's going to be the default theme for Drupal 10. And I'm super excited about that. It looks a lot cleaner. We have a new administration theme that is also in Drupal 9, and hopefully it will be the default in Drupal 10, although there's still a substantial amount of work. So if anyone is excited about that, you can reach out in the admin UI Drupal Slack channel. And so, yeah, so that's where we're going. So Drupal 7, which is still supported, is when the Bartik theme and 7th theme were introduced, and that was back in 2011. When Drupal 7 was released, we supported Internet Explorer 6, and holy cow, that's like a long time ago. That's like a million years in internet years. Drupal 8 came out in 2015, and when that came out, we supported Internet Explorer 9 with that, which is still like a little crazy. Drupal 9 came out not too long ago, just like in June 2020. And at that point, we said, we're only supporting Internet Explorer 11. So this is the last version of Internet Explorer right here. And Drupal 10 is slated to come out in June. And this is so exciting because we are officially not supporting Internet Explorer. So this, like, why is this a big deal? You know, so like, well, let's talk about what we are supporting. We're supporting like the last 2 versions of some major, major browsers like desktop browsers and Safari and iOS, and then the latest supported release of like the other mobile browsers, in addition to the extended support release of Firefox. So why is it such a big deal that we're not supporting IE? And that's because the release cycle, like all these other browsers release, all these other browsers do releases very quickly. Chrome and Firefox do releases every 4 weeks. We only have to support the last two versions of those. Firefox extended support releases every 1.5 years, and there's a new one that was just released. So like that's still a new browser. Safari releases every year or so, and so that's relatively new. In comparison, Internet Explorer was released in 2013, so we're really limited by 2013 technology, which kind of stunk. So we do have some modern tooling in Drupal 9. For CSS, we use some post CSS. We use what's called post CSS preset env, and this is kind of a pretty popular wrapper, and it's like a wrapper for a lot of different post CSS plugins. And these post CSS plugins that are included in this are actually like kind of syntax changes that are hopefully coming down the line for native CSS. So we're writing like kind of like a version of CSS from the future, and then post CSS transpiles it to what our supported browsers can understand. So we can write things like on the left hand side, you can see we're using things like nesting, and we're using things like CSS Logical Properties, and we're using things like CSS Custom Properties. I'm going to talk about a lot of this stuff later. And then the post CSS preset env will transpile it all over into that normal CSS that's on the right hand side. And so that kind of helps ease the pain, but it doesn't quite do everything. So on the JavaScript side, Core has Babel. Babel just basically transpiles JavaScript. It takes modern ES6 style JavaScript with like constant lets and arrow functions and things like that, and will change the syntax to something that Internet Explorer or whatever your supported browser versions support. So what can we solve with all this newer stuff right here? Well, we can make our code a lot cleaner and more maintainable. We can add new features. I'm going to talk about a lot of these new features. I'm going to talk about how it's going to be easier to extend. And this is all like super exciting. So if you're a CSS nerd like me, right now I want your ears to perk up, because this is what we're going to talk about. So a lot of the CSS that we're talking about right here isn't like the new visual stuff, it's not like, the new filter, backdrop filters and all this cool things that we can now support. But I'm talking the CSS that I'm going to refer to right now is going to be more about making your CSS code base more maintainable and more resilient and more robust and things like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is the all revert property and value. So this is all and revert. Our new all is a new shorthand property. It basically references all of the properties, like everything. So and revert will change everything back to the browser's default. So this is like super cool. So if you have a selector and you just want to get rid of all the styles that have cascaded down to this and everything, because like CSS obviously cascades, and that can inject some pain sometimes. You can just revert it by doing all revert, and that goes back to your browser's default style sheet, which is pretty awesome. So like, how are we going to use this in Drupal Core? So like, I don't know if anyone's ever used Layout Builder. This is just kind of a little Layout Builder screen, and on the right hand side we have this thing called the settings tray. And if we have any Drupal themers in here that have done any theme development and then done Layout Builder, they've inevitably had their styles leak into the settings tray. And the reason is, I don't know, you don't even bother looking at this code. It's just this huge mess of selectors up here. Like, it's an ID, Drupal off canvas A, Drupal off canvas ABBR, Drupal off canvas, every element listed under here, and then the CSS goes down and tries to reset everything back to what we think it should be. And we have to do it this way because we can't use the asterisks, because asterisks would support like things like SVGs. We have to be very explicit right here, and it is brittle and it is broken, and things still cascade into that where you don't want, and it's a pain in the butt. Well, hey, we can fix it. We can fix it with this like 3 lines of CSS right here: Drupal off canvas, asterisks for a universal selector, all revert. And then you're taking out all this mess of CSS and you're replacing it with that. A lot easier to maintain. So CSS Logical Properties. CSS Logical Properties ease the pain of doing right to left languages. So Olivero was the first time I ever had to do a right to left language, right? So you can see right here, we're looking at Arabic. You know, and Arabic starts on the right-hand side, and then, you know, you read it from the right-hand side, and then it ends at the left, as opposed to English, which starts on the left and reads to the right. Hebrew is very similar. So how, you know, this is important to take into account with CSS, because you might want to add some padding to the start of the text, and usually we just do padding left. But you don't have to do that anymore. The way that we used to handle that is the way at the top up here where it says, you know, you do like padding left 10 pixels, and then you would do dear RTL padding right 10 pixels. You don't have to do that anymore. You have this, you have CSS Logical Properties, which give you the option to do, and instead of saying like you do padding and then inline, and when I say inline, that's like the horizontal axis. Yeah, the horizontal axis for languages that read horizontally. There are some languages that read vertically, and in that case, the padding inline would be vertical right there. So you would do padding inline start, and that's the same thing as padding left, and set your value right there. And then if someone is in an RTL language like Arabic, then the padding would appear on the right, and that's pretty neat. So we're already using this in Olivero, and it gets transpiled. But at this point, we're not going to need to transpile this stuff anymore, which is going to make our CSS bundles a lot smaller, which is going to make their websites quicker, which is just going to make everybody a little happier. So here's the, you know, you can see inline and block and all that type of stuff. This is for a language like English. This is for a language like, I guess, Japanese, I think goes up and down. I'm not quite sure. So next thing is CSS Grid. So CSS Grid, I hope if you're doing front-end development, you're using CSS Grid, because I am. And it's pretty awesome. And to me, it's like a little bit more intuitive than even Flexbox. We're using CSS Grid actually in Olivero. You can kind of see how our grids are defined right there, because believe it or not, Internet Explorer 11 actually supports a very rudimentary version of CSS Grid, which the post CSS plugin auto prefixer can kind of transpile your stuff to, but it really sucks. Like it doesn't do auto placement. And when I say auto placement, like let's say like I have with CSS Grid, you should be able to say like, hey, I want all this stuff to show up on, you know, column 1. And if you have multiple things, they'll put the next one on the second row, the third one on the third row, and all that type of stuff. Internet Explorer doesn't do that. Internet Explorer will just kind of stick it right on top of each other, and it'll jumble it all together. Internet Explorer doesn't support negative grid lines. And so with CSS Grid, like say I want to go from grid like 2 to, you know, second from the end, I can do, I want this to span 2 to -2, because negatives will count from the opposite way. And that's pretty neat, and it simplifies your CSS pretty good. Internet Explorer can't do that, so we have to be very specific, and we have to introduce some hacks. We have this very brittle CSS grid hack in Olivero right here called IE11 auto row, and basically we're assuming that everything that underneath the IE11 auto row CSS class is like going full width, and then we just do the first child is on grid row 1, second child is on grid row 2. All of this is going to go away, once again making our CSS bundle sizes a lot smaller and taking away some of the brittleness. We're going to be able to write a lot of grid syntax without using media queries, which is gonna kind of be nice. I'm excited about this. So if you're a Drupal site builder, you probably go into views, and if you go into the format where you say how you want the view to be displayed, there's an option for grid. And inevitably you've tried that, and then you kind of saw that, hey, this doesn't work very well. It's not responsive. Why is this not responsive? This is horrible. Yeah, and I can't use this. I have to write my own. So like this issue right down below is basically an issue to make the views grid responsive. We can do that very easily with CSS Grid. Within Olivero, we have a responsive grid, but we're using Flexbox because of the whole IE auto row issue, and everything's messy, but we're going to clean it up. And I want to clean this up on the core level. So if you're using, if you're creating a custom theme and you select grid, it's going to do the grid and it's going to automatically start switching itself. And that's pretty awesome in my opinion. So yeah. So you can see like all of our helpers that we have here, and they're all horrible and they're going to go away. And I'm excited about that. Something else that Internet Explorer could not do is some new focus selectors. So there's two of them that I'm going to talk about right here, Focus Within and Focus Visible. So Focus Within is really, really neat because it allows you to select kind of a parent item and say, if the focus is anywhere in this parent element, at that point, do this to the parent element. So that's pretty neat. We don't use this in the menus for Olivero, and the reason is because we need JavaScript to toggle the ARIA expanded attributes for accessibility reasons. But we do use it if JavaScript is disabled. We have a no script style sheet, and we use Focus Within that. And if Focus Within happens and there's no JavaScript, we will go ahead and activate any type of submenus. And this is the type of thing that's really, really useful. This has been around for a long while, but it's not available in Internet Explorer. Another focus selector is Focus Visible. So Focus Visible allows you to only show focus states if if your user is using a keyboard or any other assistive technology. So your browser will actually determine if the focus state should be set. And it does, like Chrome does this by default. I think Firefox does the same. And you can use this little bit of code right below there to kind of make it to do a little bit of progressive enhancement if you don't want your focus states to show if users are using a mouse. So you can say if it has focus but not Focus Within, then don't show the outline. And that will only affect browsers that support Focus Within, and then it has focus and stuff. We don't use this in Core because our accessibility maintainers determine, well, we want people to kind of know where they're clicked and maybe know where they are. So we're not using this in Core, but it's just something that's pretty neat, and it's widely available now. So I'm getting into some of the cool stuff right now. So I'm sure if you've done CSS, you probably use the not selector. So the not pseudo selector is supported by Internet Explorer 11, and it allows you to do things like, I want to select an unordered list that does not have the contextual link CSS class. And like, that's pretty cool. And that works, but within modern browsers, we can use selector arguments within not. So we can do like complex things within that not parentheses, as opposed to just, does it have a CSS class or does it have an attribute? So we can do things like, it's a list item, it's an LI that does not exist under anything that has a contextual link class. And that's pretty cool. Like, that's like pretty awesome in my opinion. We're going to get back into this. We're going to combine some of the stuff. I'm going to take a drink of water first. So the is selector allows you to combine multiple selectors. This is pretty new. This is, once again, isn't supported in IE 11. So you can combine. You see at the top where like we have a selector that's, you know, heading 1 menu item is active, heading 2 menu item is active. You can combine those into is heading 1, you know, comma heading 2, and that works exactly the same. It has the same exact specificity. You can use this in JavaScript too, like if you're doing a query selector. It uses all the same type of stuff. And although like you're thinking to yourself, this isn't that big of a deal, there's a couple places where it's going to dramatically save some CSS bundle sizes. This is like this big long CSS file within Olivero, and you can see the top level selectors up there are text content and then CKE editable. And then we have like, I don't know, 10 or 20 different selectors down below that do a lot of types of things. And we can combine these into one is selector, and that's going to shave off precious bytes. And that's just going to be pretty cool. And it's going to simplify the code base. So yay for that. So this is one of my favorite things right here is where. So there's a where selector that kind of came out at the same time as is. So where allows you to combine selectors. And you're thinking, wait a minute, like this is what is does. Like how are is and where different? Where removes specificity. This is like huge. Like if you have worked and architected like major CSS code bases, and you don't know about where, your mind is probably exploding right here. So let me kind of get into this and explain a little bit more. So you can see like, I'm using is in this particular case. Like the list item is contextual link. That has the same CSS specificity as list item dot contextual link. There's no difference, right? But if I'm using where, if I do list item where contextual link, because the contextual link is wrapped in those where parentheses, the list ID, the LI has the same specificity as a regular LI. And this is like, boom, this is huge. This is so cool. And you can combine like all this stuff this is CSS. You can combine all of this. So you can do things like a list item, but not that doesn't exist under contextual, something that has a contextual links CSS class, but I want to have the same specificity as a regular list item. So I can style all the list items in my front end theme, and I know I'm not screwing around with the contextual links. That's pretty cool. Boom. You're going to see a lot of these like exploding mind GIFs here, so you can get used to this. This is one of my favorite ones. But there's a problem with where. UC browser, which is this browser made by like the Alibaba group that's in China, and Drupal 10 officially supports this, does not support where, you know, and it's like, it's the only one. So I say, let's remove it. Honestly, like looking at that browser, there's a ton of privacy issues, and take a look at this issue, get in there and say, yes, we don't need this browser. It has like 1% usage and has tons of privacy issues. And no, I doubt anyone really tests it anyway, so let's yank that out. CSS clip path is super cool. It allows you to create a clipping region when you're using SVG shapes. Like this is pretty cool. So in this particular case, I have a selector called handle, and I set my background to black, and then I have my clip path, and I have a bunch of SVG code that I copied and pasted from an SVG clip path in there, and I put that in there. And then what this does is it actually only shows the background inside of that clip path. And that's pretty cool. But you're thinking to yourself, well, why the heck why don't I just use a background image? This is like, you know, this is like 2003 CSS. I can do this with 2003 CSS. Why doesn't this work? That's a really good question. The answer is background images don't appear. And if they do appear, depending on the browser, they do not change colors when you're in forced colors mode. So if you're not familiar with what forced color mode is, it's like basically Windows high contrast. If you're in Windows, you can change your entire theme of your start menu and everything and your browser to what's called forced color mode or high contrast mode. And your browser has to respond to this, right? And so there's a media query for this. You can see this kind of near the bottom right here where it says media force colors active. And the thing about this is like we can set the background to change if if force colors is active through here. And this is something you can't do with a background image. We can maybe guess that they have a light on dark high contrast theme, but what if they have a dark on light contrast theme? What if they have a custom force color theme? We're using pastel on this pastel or something like that. We can use some keywords in here like canvas text and at that very, very long URL at the bottom from Microsoft, it talks a little bit about this. This particular issue that we're running into with this force color stuff, this has been a pain in the butt with getting these issues over the finish line within Drupal Core, because Drupal Core supports force media. So Drupal Core has a great commitment to accessibility. We need to get this right. Now we can, and I'm super excited about that. But what I'm really, really, really excited about is CSS variables, aka CSS custom properties. And the little asterisk is underneath, they stand for heck, not any other words, just FYI. So we actually use CSS variables in Drupal 9, but we kind of transpile them. We use them in the Olivero theme and the Claro theme, but they're compiled during the build step. Which means that, with normal CSS variable, you can change the CSS variable within a media query. This doesn't do that. And these CSS variables don't cascade. You can't like dynamically, inject them or anything. It doesn't do any of that. And they can only be attached to the root element. So like basically these are treated all like kind of Sass variables, which granted is a lot better than not having them at all. So with Drupal, oh yeah, here's some CSS variables that we have defined within Olivero. You can see that we have like 5 for every single CSS variable here. We actually have like 5 different versions of it, one for each breakpoint. So you can see like grid column count, grid call count right there. We have the medium version, large version, nav version, max version, and it just gets very hard to manage. It's easy to screw up. It's hard to read the code because of all this. It's pretty difficult. Oh, and I actually, if you look closely, I put a crying emoji in the comment up there. And this did get added to Drupal Core, so you can look that up. There's a big crying emoji, and I'm going to be super happy when I get to yank that crying emoji out of Core. So what might this look like in Drupal Core, right? So one thing that we need to realize is that Drupal CSS variable architecture is going to be a new API. People are going to be hooking into it. People are going to be extending their front end themes are going to be looking for any type of back end variables that exist, right? And the thing is, like, Drupal has this commitment to make upgrades easy forever. That means that like once we define this, we can't change it. We have to define how we're going to create these CSS variables. We have to make it consistent. We have to make them predictable. We have to abstract them properly, but not over abstract them. We have to make it understandable. We have to figure out how to deprecate them. There's so many things. So totally no pressure, But so I have some ideas, and these are just ideas right here. Like we can do things like define some basic properties that can be abstracted out. Like maybe Drupal has like a spacing unit and a primary color and stuff like that. And we name them, dash dash Drupal dash dash spacing, dash dash Drupal dash dash color primary 10. I don't know. And at that point, if I'm creating a custom theme, I can easily override this stuff. I don't have to know the selectors or anything like that. I just need to know the custom properties, the CSS custom properties I'm overriding. So I can override the dash dash Drupal dash dash spacing unit and kind of just point it to my own CSS variable. And like, this is pretty awesome right here. This makes it so I don't have to know the selectors. I don't have to use the inspector. I don't have to do all this. It dramatically cuts down CSS. And we could even do things like use these newfangled selectors like the where and nots in here. So that top selector selects everything that's in the browser except for the admin bar, what's inside the admin bar. So I can do things like that, or I can just like say, all right, for the tabs, I want to override the Drupal spacing unit into tabs. I want to override the Drupal primary color into tabs. I could do this so easy without actually having to go down and write properties. Like, this is awesome, you know, like our components could look something like this, you know, where we identify all the variables at the top up here, you know, and we have things like CSS logical properties in there, so we don't have to do all this RTL stuff, and it just works, and it's beautiful, you know. This is awesome. This would make, you know, styling so much easier and funner and go quicker, and I'm excited, you know. But there's so much more we can do, you know. But wait, there's more. So like Olivero, I hope you all are familiar with Olivero. I've been working on it. One of the biggest features that that people want in Olivero is to change colors. Like, some people want green, some people want purple, you know. Well, like, let's do that. I have like a little demo right here, and we still have to build an interface, but like through the magic of CSS variables, we can do this type of stuff. On the right-hand side here, I'm going down, and I have all the colors abstracted out into HSL, and I have the hue abstracted out into a variable. So I can start changing all the colors right here, and they all like kind of fall in line right here, you know. So we can maybe make this into a theme setting. If you want a gold theme or a red theme or whatever, green or anything like that, like this purple, like this is all types of stuff that is like fairly doable within CSS variables. And to me, like, that's pretty awesome, you know. Like, that's the type of stuff. But wait, there's more. There's so much more, you know. So like we talked about, I showed you this earlier about how the current views grid implementation is not responsive. If you go into the settings for this, it asks you how many columns do you want. Well, we could take that variable that the user puts in, and we can output that in Twig. So we can do things like you know, inject a CSS custom property within a style tag within the Twig call, you know, and at that point within our CSS that we're writing, we can say we're just gonna look for that, and that's what we're gonna use, and that's like a direct way that our CSS can hook into the Drupal settings, and like, that's pretty cool. Like, that's really awesome. But that's not it. But wait, there's more. Like, if you've ever done fixed headers in Drupal, you've undoubtedly run into the problem where like the admin toolbar will overlap your headers and things like that. And so you have to do things like, you have to guess, like, hey, I know that these admin toolbars are 39 pixels high and things like that, you know, and you set a variable or something like that. There's actually a Drupal API for this called the Drupal display. So it's like Drupal.displace, and you can query it through JavaScript. It returns an object, and it basically says like, all right, well, you know, you have 79 pixels on the top. You know, if your settings tray open, you have a couple hundred pixels on the right, et cetera, and stuff like that. What that can inject, we could have that JavaScript inject the CSS directly into the body or the HTML or whatever, and then we can just style our CSS against that, and boom, like, it works. It's just like awesome, you know. So like, I'm super excited about this, you know. But like, it comes back to it, like, we have one shot to get this proper. Like, Drupal 10 is coming out. This is the first time we don't have Internet Explorer. We're going to have CSS variables in there one way or the other. We have to make sure we do it properly. So I'm proposing, and I created this issue this morning, a new CSS modernization initiative right here. And I have so many thoughts, and this is just me saying, let's get some smart people together. Let's figure this stuff out. Let's not write the CSS, but let's figure out what we want to do, you know, and let's figure out how we can potentially use CSS variables and things like the all revert and is and where and cool things like that. We can get in there and do it. And yeah, so that is my rant. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Mike, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Very entertaining. I don't think I'll ever get tired of the mind blown GIF. It's just
I
a
can put that
classic.
back on if you want.
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah, sure.
um, so if anyone has any questions, please submit them to the Q&A section. In the meantime, I've got a couple of questions. First off, is it really a big deal, Mike? I mean, people liked IE, right?
Yeah, like when it came out, it was pretty good. Like Internet Explorer 11 was better than Internet Explorer 12, and Internet Explorer 12 was better than, Internet Explorer 11 was better than Internet Explorer 10. You know, but the problem is it didn't update it quick enough.
Right. Joking aside,
Yeah.
Edge. Any issues with Edge that we need to worry about? So IE's gone, but Edge is here. Are we kind of like, we don't really have to worry about it, or are there issues there?
Yeah, we still need to test on it. So Edge, we support the last two versions of Edge. The last two versions of Edge are based off of the Chromium browser. So there's a lot of similarities between Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome. That being said, there are some differences. Like, for example, I ran into a bug when I was working on Olivero, where I was trying to work with the Windows high contrast mode, and I was using the current color keyword within CSS, and the current color changed properly in other browsers, but it didn't do it in Edge. So it's the type of thing where we still need to test, but Edge has a very rapid release cycle like Firefox and Chrome, so it's moving pretty quickly. I'm excited about it.
Great. We got a question from Sean. They ask, what is the status of accessible devices preferring IE 11 due to issues with newer browsers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have the answer to this. If there's an issue for remove IE from Drupal, and we talked about this with the accessibility maintainers. So Drupal Core has some very knowledgeable, amazing, and passionate accessibility maintainers. So one of those is Andrew McPherson, and you can read those comments right here. You can go down through the whole list. There's lots of discussion specifically with accessibility there. So I don't quite know the answer to that, but the answer is in that issue.
That's great. Yeah, it's valuable just to point people to where to even look, because sometimes it's hard to find that. Martin has a question. Will we see any of these changes in 10.0, or will we have to wait until 10.1?
Oh, well, so I have, I'm hoping for 10.0. And what this really comes down to is our core committer availability, which is basically Lowry Escala. So I have this issue right here that says this is an issue that is it's RTBC, and this is the actual patch that actually stops the compiling of the CSS variables within Olivero and Claro. And once this is committed, at that point, we can actually start work on how we want to do this. That being said, the issue to do the modernization, I'm going to post this in the chat right here. This is a lot about planning. We have to figure out what we want to name stuff, how we want to namespace things, and like how much we want to abstract stuff. There's a good amount of planning that needs to go in before we actually start implementing the changes. But that being said, like from an Olivero point of view, I can start implementing these changes right away. And if we decide to rename everything, then we'll just rename it at that point.
Okay. So is it the modernization and figuring out the plan that needs to happen by June, by 10, or everything needs to happen?
I wouldn't say everything. You know, like if a CSS my main concern is that someone introduces a CSS variable that we don't have a plan for. And if we do, that CSS variable will basically exist forever because people are going to be reliant on it. We have a very strict policy toward backwards compatibility.
Right.
From my thought, though, I would like to get a lot of the groundwork of this in there. Like,
Yep.
this is an opportunity. This is the type of stuff that, like, you know, Drupal, the Drupal Association and Drupal proponents are going to really want to market Drupal 10. This is the type of thing that they can really point to.
Great. Kate has a question. Does Olivero support subtheming and components?
So Olivero does not support subtheming, and I'm going to talk to you why, because everybody wants to change everything with Olivero, which is a pretty normal use case. The reason that we don't support subtheming is because as soon as we say it's supported, that means that our markup is kind of an API, because you're basically, you could be styling against the CSS classes and the markup that we have, and if we go ahead and change it, that could break a subtheme. There's a new theme generator that's going into Drupal 10. So new Drupal theme generator, if I can spell things. Drupal Core starter kit theme generator. And so basically it's a PHP command that you will run it, and it'll probably be a drush command too, and you will run it and it'll basically copy a theme and generate a new theme. And then so this new theme is going to be kind of standalone, but it's going to be it's going to have all the templates and be based off of whatever you set it on. Right now this only works with Stark. We're going to create a best practices starter kit theme shortly, and we also want the ability to duplicate or to create starter kits off of like current themes. Like, so if I want to create a starter kit based off Claro or Olivero and things like that. So I'll link to that right here.
Great.
Yeah, so Ofer says the starter kit theme generator already works in 9.3. I think it does, but it doesn't do all the themes and everything. It doesn't do it can't like duplicate Olivero or anything like that.
In Q&A, I've got a question for Andy. With Drupal 10 slated for release in 6 months, do you think a CSS API is too ambitious of a project?
It's totally ambitious, yeah. But like, I you know what? Like, if you give me the permission to commit directly to like the main 10.0.x branch, we can get it done. That being said, like in reality, Larry Escala and Christina Chumias and any other core main committer that wants to be able to be active in this, we're going to need a lot of support. There's going to be a lot of things to change. And all these people are, unfortunately, they're very busy. Like Larry's working, doing a heck of a lot, like upgrading from CKE Editor 4 to CKE Editor 5, which is one of the things that's a must-have for Drupal 10. There's a whole bunch of people working on things like that. So is it probably too ambitious? Probably, but I think now's the time. Now's the time to start. Was it like the best time for planting a tree is 10 years ago? The second best time is now, or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, I think that's a subtle hint to help, offer Mike help and volunteer your time.
Yeah.
Martin wants to know, could Olivero support one custom CSS file to add some specific CSS for a small set of overrides or additions?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Create an issue. That's something that I would totally be on board with. The Gen admin theme does that, so I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. It's an amazing admin theme. That does something similar, and I totally wouldn't mind doing that.
We've got 5 minutes. Do you want to show people where they can go to start some of those, like either start an issue or just remind people how to get in touch with you, or?
Mm-hmm. So a couple things. So I created this issue right here for the Drupal CSS Modernization Initiative, and I talk about some opportunities, some dangers, what we need, and how to get in here and help. I just created that this morning. I also created a within Slack. I'm firing up Drupal Slack right now. Hold on one second. Let me find my window here. I created a new channel where we can talk about this. called the CSS channel, because there was not a CSS channel, which I like put in here. I said, yeah, it really shows the amount of thought that goes into Drupal CSS, the fact that there wasn't there. Hey, Andy. And so we can get in here, we can talk about this type of stuff. There's lots to talk about. Like I said, like naming the CSS custom properties and where to use them and when to abstract them, and maybe kind of write out some best practices. And this is all the type of things that we need to do like some larger level thinking on before we actually just start writing code.
I think Overhead had one more question or a suggestion. Can we please use design tokens in the new modernization plans?
You know, I've heard that word, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not too
either.
familiar with what those are. But I mean, I want to hear everything, because like, sure, you know, I don't know.
That's great. Let's see, we've got 3 more minutes. If you have anything else you want to share, Mike, great. Otherwise, thank you so much. Very eye-opening, and like, I don't know, I sense a lot of relief in your voice as much as anticipation. I think getting rid of IE will be wonderful.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, but it's a little scary, because we don't want to screw anything up either as we're doing it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Leslie, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just want to say thanks, Mike, for a great presentation. Your excitement, your enthusiasm was awesome. Really appreciate that. All your efforts going into making a presentation like that. I know it takes a lot of work, so we Design for Drupal really appreciate that. And your willingness to share your knowledge is also something that we definitely appreciate. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I hope everybody learned something. I also appreciate you and Patrick to actually put in all the work to design this, because as an organizer, I know it's a heck of a lot of work. So everybody say thank you to them.
Yep, and there's plenty of others behind the scenes who are helping.
Oh yeah,
thanks
to everybody else too. Real MVPs.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you in Orlando in February, Mike, maybe.
Yeah. You know, the average is 75 degrees Fahrenheit average in Orlando in February. So I hope to see everybody there.
I'll take it.
All right, thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.